Well, here I am again at my little table in front of this miserable cafe. If you want to go in, put the money in the box right here. But I must tell you, what is going on in there is not music. My Uncle Farzad, may he rest in peace, was the finest oud player in all of Ankara. But what's going on in here is not music. Don't be deceived. Go in if you must.
So this is going to be a beginner's rendition of S.L. Weiss, the Prelude from the Suite Number 34. I've been playing this instrument for about a year and 2 months. So what follows is a beginner's rendition, and I'll have more to say afterward. So, in my own defense, I get very nervous even in front of a camera. I don't play in front of people very much. While it's true that I've been playing this instrument for a year and 2 months, I did play classical guitar in the 80s for off and on for about 10 years. But I hadn't picked up an instrument till about 3 years ago when, after 35 years, I broke out my classical guitar again, and I relearned a couple of pieces, like the little Prelude 999 from Bach, and the one movement, the Minuet number 1 out of the Cello Suite number 1. And I learned the Weiss Prelude on the guitar, but it just wouldn't. I just wasn't happy on the guitar, and I had a Baroque Lute in 1977, but due to life circumstances, I couldn't stick with it. So essentially, I have a history with guitar mainly, but it's 40 years ago, and I've had this lute for a year, and I'm pretty happy with what I've been able to learn. And so the problem is, whenever you go up on YouTube, you see people like Evangeline Misgardi or, Hopkinson Smith, and almost anybody who bothers to record Baroque Lute plays it beautifully. So I wanted to get up here and say, well, here's what a raw a raw learner looks like. But I hope it's encouraging. And so that's why I did the video, so that one might be encouraged to pick this instrument up. And I've got a little bit of advice. For me, I let the repertoire pull me forward, because I love Weiss and I love Bach, and I've actually learned the first half of the Courant from the Cello Suite No. 1 on the lute here, and I am very happy to be playing the lute. And so I would recommend, if you really love the Baroque lute, get a Baroque lute. Don't mess around with a Renaissance lute. Don't do something you're really not got your heart in. The repertoire will pull you forward, and also get the best instrument you can possibly afford. This lute was $2,800, and it's a Larry Brown lute from the '90s, and it far exceeds the quality I thought I was getting. It's a wonderful instrument. It has a voice and a personality, and it has good volume. Not all lutes do. Some are so quiet I wouldn't want to own them. But this instrument helps me learn, and I think that's really important. You're probably an adult too. I mean, you know, when you do this, so invest what you can in a good instrument. And I have had a lot of people. If you read online, this lute's 140 millimeters across the bridge. And they say, oh, don't get one that's 140. You'll never sort the bass out, blah, blah, blah. And the truth is, my hand is perhaps not as wide as average. And so the fact that this bridge is 7% narrower than one that's 153 millimeters, I think it's all relative. And in fact, I appreciate not having to reach so far to get to the bass strings, and many historical lutes were 140 millimeters. But Europeans of that era, they all started smoking at the age of 3, so they didn't get to be that big. They were only like 3 feet tall. Let's see, what else about the lute? One of the things that kept me from going back to the lute before this last year, I was afraid of the tuning. And I've got a Korg, tuner. The truth is, this is a really good instrument, and as long as the weather's fairly steady, it holds a tune pretty well. I don't spend that much time retuning. And that there again is a reason to get a quality instrument. The other thing about it is that, for example, S.L. Weiss, I learned the Prelude from the Suite 34 on guitar. It's easier to play on the lute. Why? Because your left-hand workload isn't busy creating the bass notes you're going to need. You've got a chromatic scale. You've got 7 notes there that, generally speaking, your left hand doesn't have to get involved with. So the music for the lute is probably easier to play on the lute than a transcription on guitar. The other thing is, I do a lot of work with my hands. I couldn't keep fingernails. I was constantly breaking them off. And if you play classical guitar and you bust off your thumb or your index finger or whatever, you're screwed up for weeks. And with the lute, the shorter the nails, the better. And so it's liberating. And I don't have to worry about it when I go, dig in the yard or work on my car or something. And the other thing is, I really like the tactile aspect of touching the strings with my fingers. I also played, acoustic steel acoustic guitar, music by John Fahey back when, and I tried the steel finger picks thing, and it just felt like putting a bag over my head and a glove on my hand. I like to touch the strings, and the lute's got so much tactile subtlety. It doesn't have a lot of volume range, but it's got tactile subtlety. You can really form up the sound a lot and learn to use that to express what's going on in the music. So my word of encouragement is, if you've thought about the Baroque lute, get a good one and dig in. Get a good lute and dig in, folks. And so I will periodically try to make these. And the expression on my face after I recorded the playthrough shows that I wasn't happy, but I had so much adrenaline. I feel fortunate I could even get that out in front of the camera. It's almost as bad as having people in the room. So anyway, good luck with your lute adventure.